visit, and we can say this together. Lord, you have led
me here to the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. Help me to open my heart, my eyes to this calling as a vocation.
May I see you
May I see in those who call for help and allow them to see you in me.
Answer their pleas.
Let me answer their pleas, and yes,
even their demand at times with your gentle spirit.
See each person as an opportunity for grace
and a step
Step closer to being the person you have called me to be.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Lord, for making these graces available. May I always see them as gifts and not burdens.
Amen.
All right, well, thank you. So, as I said, we're going to talk quickly about why we do home visits, spirituality as a part of the home visits, talk about some tough questions about home visits, and then kind of break through the anatomy of the home visit. And then I want an opportunity for people to share their questions with our team here. And finally, this video is being recorded, so please feel free to share with members of your conference. If you can think of anybody who you think would be particularly good at home visits or who might have questions. All right. So our three essential elements are spirituality, friendship, and service. And we see the three essential elements in all that we do, including our home visits. This is another quote from Sister Louise de Marillac. It particularly talks about just having the right attitude, right? That we're not called to fix everything. We're not called to solve all the problems. We're just called to be the face of Christ. She says, you must show them attention, serving them from the heart. So we'll do all that we are called to do as Vincentians with heart. So this is one of our first questions I wanted to talk about today. This is home visit standards. When does your conference know it's time to schedule a home visit? As we all know, each conference will have a different answer, and it will look different for each conference. But it should be important that we all know what is our criteria for a home visit, and what.
That's the last one then.
Sorry?
And I have that one.
Yes.
All right. It's really going to depend on conferences. I know there are some conferences that do almost no home visits, and usually that's because they have few people and a lot of calls. Some other conferences have few people and a gazillion calls, and so for them, it's very rare for them to do a home visit. I think there's kind of consensus for furniture is one of the things that most of the conferences feel like they need to really be in the home to see what the real need is. And that's good for many reasons, not just, oh, do they really need the bed, which should not be what we're going, that should not be our mindset when we're going in. But, what else might we do? We might do a lamp, but sometimes we might do a side table. I mean, there are other things when we discuss with them, their situation and what might be best for them. So all the way around, that's really good. But there are other times, I know within my own conference, at times we don't have many people available because of sickness or illness, or there's a lot going around, or the weather's bad. Another trigger sometimes is the immediacy. It's going to be cut off today. So it may be the call taker who's paying that bill to keep the electricity on, because we're thinking balancing out, we'd rather keep the electricity on than, to wait around for a couple of days for a home visitor. but we've had these discussions within our conference, and so everyone is in consensus. And I think that's the important thing, is whatever each conference decides, that there's consensus on, what realistically can we do? When can we do it? When we can't? And even within our conference, our call takers have limits, like they can spend a certain amount of money. They can spend up to the winter room, 175, to keep, again, so that we can keep those emergencies on. But anyway, that's just some of the thoughts that I've had. Especially post-COVID, when we went through COVID and we really didn't do home visits, and we had to work our way out of that back into actually going in for home visits and pushing ourselves back out, so in our conference, at least, it became kind of a balance. And I think in some of the other conferences, a balance of realistically, what can you do, so that the neighbor's served. What's the best way within a reason for us to get services to the neighbor. And so that's my initial thoughts on it. One other thought is, we do have a couple of areas where it can be a little dicey to do a home visit. So then it may not be at home, it may be at McDonald's or somewhere else that we have the visit.
Right.
So that we're more comfortable. And
Yeah.
So those are my initial thoughts to throw out and see what others think.
In our conference, I'm from Joan from Holy Angels in Dayton. We are partners with Hannah's Treasure Chest, and they provide many, many things: clothing, toys, oral care, clothing and supplies for pregnant mommies. And then after the mommy gives birth, if she needs for her baby, the bottles and sterilization, all the equipment, whether they're breastfeeding or formula and that kind of thing, we need to make a home visit because we have to measure the children, their shoe and sock size. What size do they really wear with their trousers and their shirts and their coats? It's especially important during the winter months that these children have a coat that fits them. Hand-me-downs are swell. I lived with hand-me-downs and I developed hand-me-downs with my own children. However, these children need to be safe and warm and have good nutrition and something that's wholesome for entertainment. I think it's very joyful to go into a home and visit, and the children realize that the spotlight is on them, and some of them are shy and some of them will be very bold and come right up. But we address everything to the mother or the caregiver of those children, and then take one child at a time. And because we're all certified, or we're supposed to be certified now, in the Safe Parishes and the Virtus training, there are certain things we do and do not do. But with the parents there or the caregiver there, you measure the child and ask questions about what are their interests. With Hannah's, they want to give books and entertainment and toys that are appropriate for that child with their interests. So that has been a real boon to our existence and our understanding of what's going on in that home. We've had grandmothers be the caregivers. We've had single moms. We've walked into homes where there was abuse and the children are very, very shy, but we put them at ease. We try to put them at ease and just very gently and just talk to the grown-up. And then little by little, the children kind of warm up and they want to stand next to you or watch what you're writing down, that kind of thing. We make home visits, as Fran mentioned too, but that was an example of what we do for Hannah's Treasure Chest, being a partner with them.
Thank you.
At our Queen of Martyrs conference in Louis and Heel, we do it for furniture, and that keeps us very busy. We usually about once a week. Every week we have 4 to 5 people, so that keeps us hopping. And when we're out, Hannah's may come up as an option for family, and then you have the follow-up visit to deliver it. But yeah, because of our numbers of, our number of incensions in our conference, we pretty much stick to the furniture, and that seems to work well for us.
Another thing is, see, I'm Mika Clark, I'm with Our Lady of Mercy. Secret Smiles, when you put in an application for them, they expect us to do the home visit.
So whether it's furniture or another partner like Hannah's Treasure Chests, it sounds like a lot of conferences do anticipate a home visit for something like that. And even if it's just for furniture or just Hannah's Treasure Chest, I think it's very helpful just to, even if you're doing one home visit, do one home visit. And as Fran said, not every home visit really needs to be in a home. John Barry will be the first to tell you that it's really about encountering our neighbors, not necessarily being through their home, although the standard should be to be in the neighbor's home, with the exception being another location. All right, second one. Sensory overload. What can I do when I feel overwhelmed by my environment on a home visit?
Doing again here. I pondered some of these possibilities. One of our conference members is a retired police officer, and whenever she and I would go on a home visit, I noticed this. She would always ask, do you have any pets, any dogs? And if you do, could you put them up? Could you put them in a different room? Because that dog is a stranger to me and I'm a stranger to that dog. So that would be wise. Remove pets. Another thing would be, we have walked into a home where you're trying to have a conversation, introduce yourself, and the TV or the radio is the widescreen TV and the volume is so high, it makes your teeth hurt. So we can politely ask, could you please turn the volume down or off? Could you turn this off? And if that's not possible, could we move to a different room so that I can hear what you're saying and you can hear what I'm saying or asking? With politeness, we introduce ourselves, but we ask these things. Another, if the, for example, sensory overload with your sense of smell. Many apartment buildings have the foyer, the entranceway, entertains cats from everywhere, and they have a particular odor, and sometimes it's overwhelming to the point where your eyes water and you can't catch your breath. So you could politely ask, could we go outside, or could we go to another room where it's not so odorous? Or, I don't say odorous, but could we please move to another room? I'm sensitive to cigarette smoke, and for some reason, many people are smokers when we make these home visits. So if it's too much, then that's why two of us go together. One can speak and one can listen or make notes. And if it's too much, then again, could we please move to a different location on your property or step outside? That kind of thing. That keeps, and one of the first home visits I ever went on, the parents, two parents, one uncle, and there were 3 little children, and they had not been able to pay their electric bill and their heating bill for about 2 months. It was winter time. They had no beds. They had mats on the floor and quilts and blankets. It was a big home in the Oak Street area, and it was physically cold. I kept my coat on, but I thought, how can these little children bear this? That was one of the first visits that I encountered Hannah's Treasure Chest, that I was going with this other Vincentian. And so keeping your coat on, if it's too cold, keep your coat on. It's no offense to the neighbor that you're visiting. Sometimes you just want to hold on to your things, you just stay warm. If it's too hot or that type of a thing, well, you can fan yourself. It's not disrespectful to the neighbor. But some people are more sensitive than others to sensory difficulties.
All right. Thank you, Joan. Mm-hmm. And then continuing this similar theme is unpredictable environments. How can I navigate different surprises? And this would be something like was mentioned earlier with different dogs, sometimes. But we know that there are other situations too.
Joan again. We're taking turns at this. About 3-4 months ago, another Vincentian and I went to deliver food to a person that was in a sober living house. So there were 2 apartment buildings together. It looked like a ranch style setup. And the gentleman came to the door. We called. That was part of our deal too. We always call before we get to their street and say, you can expect us in 5 minutes, whatever the color car is, watch for us. So we go up to him. He comes out. Within seconds, 8 other people are flowing out of their buildings. They see that we're bringing him food. So they all kind of descended upon, we were 2 females that day. Well, what do you have in it? I'm sorry, we don't have food for you, but could you write down this number? And we also have little cards we can carry. Our parish St. Vincent de Paul helpline number. If you call this number anytime, we need your name, your address, what it is that you need. And if it's food, do you have any allergies? And we'll try it, and a phone number, a working phone number where we can reconnect with you. Because we're not like the food pantry truck, the bog ministry that brings food to the whole neighborhood. That's not what we do. We go very specifically. And sometimes you can actually make a home visit when it's something like that. But oftentimes it's wiser to do your home visit outside if it's sober living facility. They're renting a room in a large house or like a ranch style setup with 1 room, and that's it. But my partner looked at me and her eyebrows went up, and I said, it's okay. By the end of that visit, that was a Saturday morning. At the end of that visit, we ended up praying with each individual neighbor, whether we gave them food or a telephone number or not. And they're so appreciative of individual concern. They were willing to pray, and they said, would you please pray for me for this intention? And when we leave, we always say, well, may God bless you. And don't forget to call if you really need help. You've got our number. So you never know what you're going to run into. But it could have been overwhelming. And if it's an emergency situation, for example, if somebody has a severe health situation or they are in true danger, call 911. If it's more than you can handle, call 911. That you can handle.
All right. Thank you, Joan. Nika.
Yeah, I was just going to say one more thing. Just by virtue of the fact that there's surprises, you can't plan how to navigate this. I mean, that's the very definition of what we're dealing with. And surprises you will have in a good way, and in a got to think on your feet kind of way. And I think that's the important reason why we have at least 2 of us. We had a pretty dicey situation. Kathy, my president, who's on this call, thank goodness she's a retired nurse. I'm a retired social worker. So together, we had a health concern where a woman had just delivered a baby and she was worn out and she ate it like right with the baby in her arms. Anywho, we just dealt with it, and I just thank God that she. I didn't know if I would know how to take a pulse. To be honest with you, that's how out of it I am on that kind of thing. But Kathy knew exactly what to do, and we were able to take care of things. You just never know, and that's part of the beauty of what we do. When we're based in our spirituality and our friendship and our compassion, and we go into someone's home and things aren't, the Brady Bunch or whatever. We rely on those, tenets of our faith and what our vocation, what we're about, to guide us and help us deal with what might come up. And 99% of the time it's pretty regular, but there's always that possibility that he's having a bad day, or there are extra people in the home that make things a little dicier. But the more you do home visits too, the more comfortable you are, the more confidence you gain in how you're going to handle things. and, you know, you're partners, you're in this together. So I think that's important, really important.
Which I think kind of really points out there should always be two people.
Mhm.
Always, always two people. All the things we're talking about, you can help each other when it's not comfortable or there's
Yeah.
surprises. You can help each other get through this. I would never want to do it on my own.
The one challenge that I had was I was doing a Hannah's visit, and the woman that I went to see with her child, she said, could you also help with Hannah's for my nurse, who was Spanish speaking, which I don't speak Spanish. And so communication became difficult. I've now learned there's technical ways to get through it, but at that point, Hannah's fortunately provides a book with pictures so that you can open the book and they can say, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And then when it came to shoe size, we got creative because I could not just that, but the sizes they had in Venezuela, which is where she was from, don't align with our sizes. So I just traced the feet of her children. And then went to a shoe store and then went to Meijer and got one of those measuring things and then lined up the paper foot. But so,
Yeah.
but it was that kind of.
Yeah.
So language can be difficult. And
Yeah.
we have tried to deliver food cards to someone who speaks Swahili and try to explain what they are. And I don't speak French and or Swahili, which were the only languages they had. And so finally we just ended up waving at each other. the cards and so.
Go to this.
Yeah.
Take this to this.
Yeah.
I'll bring up one other that happened to one of ours, and she was a nurse, so she was good at this, but was surprised because we thought it was a mother-daughter, much older mother-daughter, and when they got there was a young couple there. And they were the ones that wanted to talk to us and make the requests. And they had to be very firm, saying, no, we need to talk to so-and-so. And and that one actually ended up that she called Adult Protective Services because we were very concerned about this very young couple who were obviously moving in on them and seemed to be taking over. So sometimes, but we didn't confront. You don't confront.
Yeah.
You just calmly asked. She just calmly asked to talk and did get to talk to the daughter and then walked out of there and made the call because, and so thinking that was, somebody else needed to handle this situation. Again, we can't do it all, but to just be aware that sometimes the best thing is just calmly get through it and then take those steps that may need to be made.
Very good. All right. May we come in? How to help when the neighbor feels uncomfortable with a home visit?
Take that one. There's a lot of lead up to the home visit. So usually by the time you go into the home, they know they're coming. That doesn't mean they feel comfortable, but that they have plenty of notice. You talk with them on the phone, you set up the date and time. You call them again, as Jim said, you're approaching, you're in the neighborhood, you'll be there in 15 minutes. So by the time you knock on the door, they're like, hey, hi, I've been expecting you. And that part isn't too uncomfortable. I'm sure there are some apprehensions on the neighbor's part because they don't know if we're coming in and looking down our nose or being judgmental or what we're doing. So usually, small talk. I mean, it's just a real basic thing that a lot of us are used to doing. It's small talk, chatting about the children or the animals or the house or, finding something in the environment to build upon and start a conversation to kind of kind of level the playing field, maybe that, we're just like, we're on the same level here. I'm not coming in here with any expectations, judgments, absolutely none. God knows that there is no place for judgment in a home visit. You are there to meet the person where they're at. One thing that I think puts them at ease too is to, tell the person, thanks, we're glad that you reached out. Thank you. We're glad to be here. It sets a nicer tone. One thing, this is kind of a side thing of my little dig in, since we worked on the Veritas thing, you always need to keep your Veritas and your Safe Parish training in mind as you're scanning the environment, as you're watching what's going on. As Fran said, whether it be an older person, a vulnerable person, a child, another adult in a domestic violence situation, all these kinds of situations, as you're spending time, you're also, keeping your eyes open as best you can. You don't have to walk through the house and open every closet or anything like that, but keep those things in the back of your mind as you're talking with people. One thing too, we talked about when you're preparing, I don't know if this is the right time to talk about it or not, but any time would be draw your boundaries. If you are planning on doing a home visit in an unsafe environment, whether that be a dicey area that you're aware of, well, a lot of the areas are dicey, but particularly bad motels, that's our big thing. They're bad motels. We can certainly meet someone somewhere else. A lot of times in the motels, we don't go to the room per se. We'll meet people in the lobby, whether that's for a food cart or a gas cart or a motel stay, whatever that may be. That's usually in the lobby, and that they seem more comfortable with that. I can't imagine having someone come to my motel room with 5 kids. I mean, there's going to be stuff hanging from the ceilings, and it's just that's their living private area. And in a motel room, it's a lot different than someone's home. So, draw those boundaries. Don't feel like you have to, step into the motel room or you can't meet them somewhere else or even turn them down just because they are in a particular motel. Hey, we'd be willing to help you out with food. I just not comfortable meeting there. We'll meet you down the way at McDonald's or whatever. So, yeah, usually people are pretty good because we're there to talk to them about what we can help them with. So I've had a lot of really good interactions, and people are pretty welcoming in our areas.
Thanks, Luann.
I have one thing.
Yeah.
We run into a lot of women that have been put in our area that have come out of the battered women's shelter. And I need more guidance, and I've asked for a workshop given by the women's shelter, because when they come to us, they are incredibly vulnerable. And they also, for example, I gave the whole name of the woman that I was with, because it was an odd situation. We were trying to actually get her into an apartment. She then said, please don't give them my full name. And I realized I need to be more sensitive to their needs. Not just that, but they are the only people that I'm giving my personal cell phone number to, because I lose them. If the person that's hunting them gets their number, they drop that number. And then I don't have a way to get a hold of them. So that they get my cell phone number, because I can block that if if it gets overwhelming. But it's very much to be sent, and especially that call before you come is critical for them, because you can't just knock on their door. It's terrifying to them and their children. So that's something I would like more training on because I'm running into it more.
I'll build on that. We had a call. She wasn't coming out of the shelter, but she was throwing her husband out for the second or third time, because it's a cycle and, and so hopefully this time. But we had to respect her distance. We sat on a couch here. She sat over there
Mhm.
because
Physical space.
physical space was incredibly important to her. And we, very calm, very, very quiet. The gal that was with me was really good. She's very empathetic and just had a really good manner. But you have to respect. Sometimes they want to be up close and personal with us. Sometimes they really, it's more comfortable for them to be different. One of the other things I've tried to start doing was just as I was coming in and introducing myself and introducing, the person with me, and then kind of a thank you for having us
Mhm.
in your home. I think trying to set the tone that we're visitors, we know we are visitors. Thank you for letting us in.
Yes.
Instead of going, well, we have to be here because if you want any assistance, we got, which I have, I've seen that sometimes, and that's the opposite of where we should be coming from. We should be humbled that they're willing to let us into their homes and share their problems with us.
Mhm. Thank you. And then, would you like to pray how to share the love of God with our neighbors?
Sometimes it's a pretty chaotic environment, and I will be honest with you. There are times when just talking is difficult. So sometimes prayer can't, at that point can't happen. But most of the time it's fine. And I don't think I've ever had a person ever turn me down. You say, can we pray? And it's so heartwarming when the little children join in and everybody's holding hands. One thing that I've learned from Mother Vincentian, which is great, to ask people, neighbors, would you like to lead the prayer? You would be amazed. I mean, there's times I'm dabbing my eye after that one. How people, the lovely prayer, heartfelt, prayer that they will engage in with us. And sometimes they'll be like, you're usually like, okay, we're probably going to have to lead the prayer again. And then someone surprises you and say, I haven't prayed in a long time. I would like to lead the prayer. And there have just been some beautiful, beautiful moments with people when that's going on. Just a couple little short stories on the prayer situation. One time we met with a woman downstairs, and the father was upstairs with the baby, and we finished up and we're walking out, and this is in a pretty rough low-income housing spot in North Dayton. We're getting ready to leave, and this young man comes out and he goes, would you guys do with me what you did with her? And of course we had no idea what he was talking about. And he goes, would you guys do that to me? Would you guys pray with me? And we were like, sure. When we finally figured out what he was referring to, we said, sure. And here we were standing out holding hands on a summer day in the most unlikely of settings with this young man and saying a prayer with him. And it was just, that was very, very spirit filled. Anyways, I like the idea of, lead. Spontaneous prayer, I think, for me personally, was hard to get used to at first. I'm a cradle Catholic and I know all my prayers and my rote prayers, but these spontaneous things were really different. But I've been doing it for a number of years now, and it's all great. It's all wonderful. And it did force me to come out of my comfort zone. And it's been a really great experience. Usually on the spontaneous prayer, I usually start with, thank you for the opportunity to meet with, so-and-so. Thank you for the ability to help them. Thank you for the resources to be able to help. And then you've already had a conversation with that family. So you kind of know some of the struggles that they're dealing with. And you use, of course, those things into your prayer. Um, Good things that are happening for the Lord to continue watching over, and challenges that the family might need. That's also incorporated in the prayer. And, many people, are just, they don't pray. And it's just a lovely experience. Another time, this is a cute one too. I wasn't involved, but I thought this was a great one for animal lovers. They were holding hands praying, and I guess some sort of boxer, a big dog, put his hands up on the arms where people were praying and kept them up there during the course of the prayer. So the dog participated in the prayer, which really won the heart of one of our, and we didn't have this plan. It was a new perspective incension. And I think that really, really has cinched the deal. Very nice. Let's see.
Recruitment's been going well for you ever since.
I think that's pretty much it. The spontaneous prayer, that takes time. That takes time and practice. And nobody's just, that's the other thing you have to get over. Oh, I know what my partner thinks about my spontaneous prayer. They probably don't think it's good. Nobody cares. It's between you and the Lord, and the people that you're with are so grateful. So the more you do that, the more comfortable it is. And I think that's probably true of the whole home visit thing in general. I wanted to add something that Fran mentioned when we were planning this that I really liked. For those of you that have never done home visits, it is a little scary. But when you get out of your comfort zone, it really allows for growth. And it particularly allows, this isn't mine, this is from Fran, but I loved it. That's why I'm saying it. When you get out of your comfort zone, it allows for growth, and it really calls you to be a better Christian and a better person. So if you're feeling a little skittish about the whole thing, that's perfectly normal, But growth happens when you're in a situation. So I think keep that idea in mind, and I think we'll be fine.
One of my favorites was when I was on a home visit, and I always ask, are you a person of faith before I do any of the prayer? And he said, no, I don't believe in God. And I went, okay. But on the way out the door, he said, but would you pray for me? And it was like, you betcha. But it was like the door opened just a bit. It's like, I'm going to hedge my bets. I'm going to ask this.
And it doesn't have to be spontaneous. I mean, we have prayer resources, and I think including the Lord's Prayer, because that's pretty universal. So even if it's spontaneous or not, leading into the Lord's Prayer, that if they're on the edge, sometimes that will draw people in, because everybody kind of knows that.
Yeah.
And then it kind of helps draw people in.
And at the end of our prayer, when we pray with folks, we ask them, as right before we walk out the door, would you please pray for us so that we can continue this ministry? We can continue to help people.
Oh, that's
Of
good.
course,
I like
we'll
that.
pray for you. I mean, it's just,
Like that.
it's already been established that they're people of some kind of faith.
Yeah.
And they're happy to say yes.
Oh,
So that keeps us going.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. One of the things I say, sometimes it's not even necessarily the intention things, but I'll say, I'm praying for you, please pray for me. And so it's joint cooperation and friendship.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much. So these slides are all on our website, but I do want to talk about a few quick points. Just remembering our spirituality in the home visit, as we, really dived into just now. We're here to show the compassion and liberating love of Christ. So we're practicing being and seeing the face of Christ. We're going to take inspiration from the Holy Spirit. right? Our visits can be unpredictable, but we want to always invite the Holy Spirit into our encounters with our neighbors. That can be spontaneous prayer, that can just be responding to our neighbors' needs the way we feel like the Spirit is moving us. We are beacons of hope, and just like we just talked about, to somebody who maybe doesn't have faith, we can still be symbols of hope in a very unique way. We're not called to evangelize, but we are called to show the love of God to the people that we encounter. So, real quick, I want to break down the different parts of the home visit. There's the request of assistance from the neighbor. There's the preparation, as we talked about earlier, that goes into making sure that it is a comfortable experience for both you and for the neighbor. The introductory part of the home visit, the action part, and then finally the exit. So the request for assistance, as we talked about earlier, it's very helpful just to let the neighbors know sometimes what you can accommodate, what you can't accommodate. You want to make sure that the information has been accumulated so that everybody knows what the expectations are. And as we talked about, we can, if need be, meet our neighbors in an alternate location if they absolutely need to. Okay, and this is just talking a little bit more about how to minimize moments that are unexpected. As we talked about earlier, there are never going to be any. We're never going to have a fully expected home visit, but as we talked about earlier, areas where home visitors are uncomfortable, can we arrange different locations if absolutely necessary? And as Mika said, contact the neighbor, let them know the date and time, just so our neighbors feel as comfortable as possible when we are encountering them. There's the introductory part. We go in twos. We introduce ourselves. We talk about how we're from the church. As Luann said, with Virtues Training, we always want to make sure that our encounters with our neighbors are keeping that in mind in our current age that we're in. And then knowing what our boundaries are if we do feel like a situation is really beyond our ability to deal with. We can make other arrangements. We can always remove ourselves from the situation. And as I think Joan said earlier, if we do need to call the police, if it is a situation where we are not able to help, we can use that as a last resource. This has been talked about tonight already, but just again, letting them know that we're here to listen. We're here to be somebody who is here to support. We're practicing servant leadership. We are a neighbor helping a neighbor. As Mika mentioned, we will talk about confidentiality. We want to hear their story, and then we want to use their story to help us guide our questions. Again, we want to come prepared. We want to come prepared with the materials that can help our neighbors that are available to them in their neighborhood. We can talk about different action plans. And then we usually come in with set expectations of how we are able to help. And then helping just to restate and keep it the home visit as a dialogue rather than just a homework assignment. All right, so we've talked a lot about different barriers that Vincentians can have when it comes to home visits, but I definitely want to open it up to the people on this call. What are some barriers that you think Vincentians have with home visits? What are some barriers that you might have or that you'd like some guidance and assistance with. And please just feel free to chime in. And I hope we can have just a good discussion. Is there anything that you'd like us to elaborate on?
The barrier that I have is if they say they have just been treated for bed bugs.
Yeah.
And then if you go in, don't sit down. Just stand at the counter or that kind of thing. And then when you get home in the garage, you. Stop sharing for now. So that is a barrier that I have. So you say,
Done that.
yes.
Yeah. What do we think? Pat, Kathy, Emily?
I think you guys did a nice job of reviewing most of the things that we've identified as we're doing home visits. And so I appreciate the great summary. And actually, one thing is we rarely get the opportunity to sit down when we're doing a home visit because typically there's no place to sit when we're doing our home visit, or if there is, there's just a place for maybe one person to sit. So we really very rarely sit. I also feel comfortable, more comfortable if I'm closest to the door. That comes from my training and working in the ERs for years, because you never know what you may run into. And it just seems to be natural that it happens that way anyway, but it's something to keep, I would encourage people to keep front of mind, depending on, and you can't necessarily judge that by it being an unsafe area. You're going to run into situations that can be in very nice homes with, and there still might be domestic violence issue or people that maybe not are able, mental health issues or whatever. So I would encourage people to be, often between the neighbor and the door. So that would be the only thing else I would have to add.
Thanks for that addition, Kathy.
Sometimes what is a barrier for us to home visits is the fact that we may need to go up quite a number of steps and there's no railing. And, one of our main home visitors gets around with a cane. And if she gets to that kind of a situation, she just has to call the person and ask them to come outside. And, they try to work it out that way. They still have time to be together and talk. But if you can't, we have to physically take care of ourselves too. And make sure that we're safe. If you're trying to carry 2 or 3 bags of stuff to give to a neighbor, and you've got to go up several steps, and whether there's a railing or not, you may not be able to reach it to hold on. So you just have to kind of be aware of your surroundings and, keep yourself safe so that you can be there for the neighbor.
That's a good point. Thank you, Pat. Any questions before we go back to the slides? All right. All right. So our home visits should never be just about filling the immediate need. Obviously, we want to help our neighbors with their requests and see how we can assist them. But we should also be keeping in mind, how do we kind of move them towards greater independence and greater self-reliance and moving towards systemic change in their life. This from Blessed Sister Rosalie Rendu. The money or assistance in kind which we give to those who are poor will not last long. We must aspire to be a more complete and longer lasting benefit, study their abilities, and help them get work to help them out of their difficulties. And this is just approaching them as we all do as friends and helping with the discussion rather than necessarily a lecture. This is the fix-it approach versus the supportive approach. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before. When I was teaching, we used to have the phrase, not a sage on stage, but a guide by the side. So it's corny, it rhymes, but it makes a lot of sense. Right? We don't want to lecture to our neighbors, but we want to walk side by side with them, accompany them, and make sure that we are kind of always operating in the spirit of accompaniment rather than lecturing them on how to go about their day to day. So we want to make sure that we're encouraging, that we're exploring different opportunities with them, that we are guided by listening to our neighbors, and then that we collaborate and nurture. So we want to help them grow. We want to work with them rather than just lecture to them. And I know this has come up tonight, but as Luann said, during a visit, if you believe that there might be a type of abuse occurring in the home, whether it be kind of the case earlier where there were people who were taking advantage of an elderly neighbor, or in a place where there might be something like domestic abuse, we want to disengage yourself from the visit, leave the residence, and then report the situation immediately. You can discuss it with your conference president, but you would want to bring it up immediately. We are not mandated reporters, but as people who are looking to follow our conscience, we want to be able to stop abuse when we see abuse. That can be adult protective services, child protective services, and some other. All right. And we can kind of end on this note, is that I hope as Vincentians who are going on home visits, we want to make sure that we're being joyful witnesses to the home visit. We want to make sure that we are sharing with our conference members what goes on in home visits, and how we have kind of been and seen the face of Christ. I think a great resource for this, I know that this was in this slides last year, is the Home Visit Journal. It just is a good resource to help us reflect on what we've experienced, how we notice God in our encounter. I think it is really wonderful if we're able to, during our conference meetings, talk a little bit about the home visit experience and talk a little bit about what you saw, what you did, how you encountered the neighbor, how you saw Christ in the neighbor. And so by being joyful witnesses to home visits, hopefully that can be an avenue for somebody to begin to think maybe that they want to experience a home visit for themselves and become a home visitor in their conference.
Another advantage to that is, for example, things become available through the district. We'll get calls, and we have codes for kids.
Yeah.
And then I always go, okay, who did I visit?
Yeah.
And a bunch of kids that probably need coats.
Yeah.
And a journal would be helpful for that. You could just page back.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and you call sometimes and say, we have Easter baskets and we have, that kind of thing.
And I think Joan said this earlier, when you're on a home visit, you notice things where your senses are open. So you'll experience, okay, this house is cold, this house needs this. So you can kind of keep it back of mind when you've met the immediate need. You can then keep in mind, you know what, I think this is a family. If they have 5 kids, I think they would really appreciate these backpacks that we have. So it just helps to build relationships and build, helps you remember our neighbors when different opportunities come up.
That means a lot to them
Yeah.
because you have thought of them,
Mhm.
that you haven't forgotten them, that you called and said, oh, we have these backpacks available. Your kid's starting school. Do you need them? And it establishes a relationship, like what you just said,
Mhm.
but that they are in your mind as well. It's not just, I saw you, like I do a bed. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
That it's not, we recently had one where a woman came out of a very horrible domestic situation where she was stepped down, and did not have, an education.
Mhm.
And she wanted to get her GED. And I found a way for her to do that. But not just her GED, the people that helped her are also helping her get some medical training at the same time. And she's so excited.
Mm.
But it's more that she asked the question, I forgot about it during the home visit, but then it came back to mind because God is good. And we went to the next step, and it meant a lot to her. First that we thought of her, but also that it's improving her situation.
Mhm. Mhm.
They don't want to ask for too much
Right.
because they're used to hearing no.
Yeah.
And then when you think of them individually, you recognize their personhood and they respond to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So we can close this portion with our prayer, and then we can have just a quick discussion after. But if we want to take a moment to kind of gather ourselves, focus on God. This is my prayer to you, O Lord. Give to me your special favor. Pour out your truth and mercy on me in abundance that will enable me to put your love into practice, filling me with true affection for you, my neighbor, and also for myself. All right, so I'll stop sharing my screen. And if you have any thoughts or questions just about home visits, we have the time to kind of talk a little bit more deeply about a subject if you'd like to. It's entirely up to you. All right. Well, yeah.
Looks like Tom's not on the call anymore, but he had a question that he wrote in the chat, and I couldn't see what it was.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, thank you. What are criteria conferences use to determine a particular neighbor needs a home visit? I think we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but it's going to look different for every conference. And as the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, we don't have necessarily, you have to do a home visit for such and such a reason. But I hope that's something that each conference has kind of taken into consideration so that they know when one is necessary.
We try and do home visits for everyone unless we visited them before.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful, Emily.
Which conference are you from, Emily?
Our Lady of the Rosary.
How many conference members do you have?
About 9 or 10.
Very busy people.
Yes, we are busy. We are busy.
Yeah.
A lot of it depends on the number of people in your conference and the number of people in your conference that are comfortable doing home visits.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Sounds like all your people are doing home visits, so that's great. And like Incarnation, I believe they have so many people.
Yeah.
They have teams.
Yeah.
Like 5 teams. What kind of a two-woman show at our parish, but it works. It's
And as someone else brought up, accessibility, physical accessibility for some of our members is now starting to limit. Some of those who used to do home visits are much, they are very, because you can be presented with steps and uneven sidewalks and sets of stairs and it's
Oh, yeah.
that's not easy for everyone.
No.
Nope. And like we were talking animals.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, for sure. Well, if that is all the questions we have, I really appreciate everybody tuning in. So thank you, and I appreciate our Vincentians who came to kind of help with this presentation, this workshop. This is a recorded conversation, so we will hopefully get this recording out very, very soon. All of the slides are up on the member website. Please let me know if you have any thoughts or questions after our meeting tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well done.